A short story. The hunger no one could name. In the city, no one ever felt hungry, at least not in the old way. The streets glowed hypnotic rays of distorted light towards the night sky, like open palms offering everything at once. Food delivered in minutes, answers in milliseconds, companionship on demand. Nervous systems frayed, minds became soft yet rigid with belief and logic. Intuition was only a faint whisper, hearts hardened. The sacred arts and ritual became distorted and diluted into the profane and mundane. People walked with their heads bowed, not in self-reflection or prayer, but to the small illuminated rectangles that fed them endlessly. News, music, desire, outrage, affirmation, half-truths, bite after bite. And yet, everyone was still hungry, thin and hollow, not in body, in something else. Maya noticed it first when the city installed the silent zones. There was a silent zone she walked past on her daily commute. Small parks where no ads played, no screens were allowed, and no notifications could penetrate. At first, people avoided them. Inside the zones, there was nothing to do but sit, to breathe, to feel time moving without it being capitalized or optimized. One day, after a particularly long, hard day at work, she got curious. The curiosity got the better of her. After all, the day she had, a new distraction would certainly be welcomed, she thought to herself. She decided to enter it. The perimeter was enclosed in a thick, dense cedar hedge and a simple wood beam archway laced with overgrown ivy. As she crossed the threshold, it felt as though it swallowed her whole. She was entering into a foreign world. The city noise didn't fade so much as stop, like a cord being pulled from the wall. No hum of traffic, no distant sirens, no layered voices bleeding through her earbuds. Just a sudden, startling absence. Maya hesitated, one foot still half turned toward the street, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone before she remembered. No screens allowed. Her fingers closed around nothing. The air felt different here, cooler, thicker, as if it carried weight instead of data. Each step deeper into the park made her more aware of her body, her breath too shallow, shoulders drawn tight, jaw clenched without reason. Panic flickered across her chest, sharp and irrational. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was invasive. It exposed things. Her mind scrambled, reaching for something familiar to chew on, a headline she'd read that morning, a message she hadn't answered, a list of things she could be doing instead of standing here feeling this. But the park offered her nothing to distract herself with or give her nerves a false sense of sedation. She simply stood there for a moment, allowing her senses to come online. Leaves whispered overhead. Somewhere, water moved slowly over a stone. Birds sang without rhythm or purpose, their calls overlapping and dissolving into one another. The ground beneath her feet was uneven, alive, insisting she pay attention to where she stepped. She wandered aimlessly, fingers brushing against rough bark, eyes catching on the lush hues of green, deep moss, pale new leaves, and the dull shine of ivy. The sweet smell of warm pine sap and damp earth filled her lungs, and for a moment she felt dizzy, like someone who had been breathing recycled air for too long had suddenly opened a window, breathing real air for the first time. That's when she saw him, An old man sat on a weathered wooden bench near the center of the park. His gray coat was thin, patched at the elbows, and his shoes were scuffed smooth with age. He leaned forward slightly, one hand resting on a wooden cane, the other extended, palm open, giving, receiving. The birds gathered around him without fear. A little sparrow hopped on his knee. Another landed directly on his hand, pecking gently at seeds resting in his palm. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if speed itself would be some kind of violence here. What struck Maya the most was he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't watching them for content. He wasn't documenting the moment. He wasn't trying to preach, persuade, or perform. He was simply with them. Something in her chest tightened. She took a seat on the far end of the bench, leaving space between them, unsure why her hands were trembling. The stillness made her feel exposed, like standing under a bright light with nowhere to hide. Her nervous system screamed at her to leave. "This is unsafe," it insisted. "Stillness is dangerous. Awareness hurts." She focused on her breathing, counting inhales the way she'd been taught during stressful meetings. The old man didn't look at her. He didn't acknowledge her presence at all, and somehow that made it easier to stay. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time behaved strangely here. Finally, the discomfort became too loud to ignore. She took a deep breath and told herself to be brave and approach with curiosity. She worked up the courage to speak, her voice cracking, her hands trembled. "Why?" she said suddenly, her voice cracking from disuse. "Does this feel so hard?" The birds scattered at the sudden sound, lifting into the air in a soft rush of wings. The old man turned to her then. His eyes shined bright, not sharp, not clever, but warm and startlingly alive, like someone who had nothing left to prove. He smiled, slow and gentle. "Because you've been starving," he said, "and this is real food." She frowned, a defensive heat rising in her throat. "That's not true. I'm fine. I have everything I need." But her chest felt heavy, ached in a way no app or shopping trip had ever solved. He nodded, as if she'd said exactly what he expected. "Most people do," he replied. "And most people are still hungry." She opened her mouth to argue about her job, her life, her connections, her carefully curated abundance, but the words stalled. Her chest ached, heavy and unfamiliar, like a grief she hadn't scheduled time to process. "The soul," the old man continued softly, brushing seeds from the palm of his hand, "doesn't eat speed. It doesn't eat convenience. It doesn't eat approval. It eats presence. It eats silence. It eats the kind of moments no one can monetize." Maya just stared at him wide-eyed, head slightly turned, as if half listening and half plotting her quick escape. Around them, beyond the dense cedar fence, the city continued its relentless feeding, screens flashing, offers expiring, voices demanding attention. But here, on this bench, something ancient stirred. Not a solution, not a lesson, a remembering. She didn't leave the silent zone, changed in any dramatic way. No clarity, no answers neatly wrapped. She left with a different hunger, one that didn't reach outward but inwards. And it scared her, because for the first time, she knew exactly how empty she had been. It hit her like being struck by lightning, shaking her to her very core. Cold fear ran through her veins like ice, paradoxically mixed with a warm, buzzing feeling of calm knowing washed over her. The world had taught her how to fill or ignore others' emotional cups, ignore repairing her own cracks, so her vessel could hold spiritually nourishing waters to quell her insatiable thirst and hunger that nothing outside her could provide. She reflected with greater empathy. Children were raised to measure their worth in metrics, status quo standards, or paraded as props on public display. Adults learned to either dull, sedate, ignore their dreams, silence their inner child that wanted to just play, or convert their passions into productivity. Even grief was hurried along, processed, packaged, shared, and then replaced with the next distraction. There was no time to sit with mystery, no space to wrestle with meaning, no language for the sacred that didn't sound embarrassing or outdated. So people fed themselves cheap, plastic, fast food substitutes. They ate entertainment instead of wonder. They ate noise instead of truth. They ate validation instead of belonging. They feasted on comparison and self-rejection. And for the first time in her life, she understood, in a world that feeds us constantly, we are starving because we have forgotten what we were made to hunger for. After that encounter, she experienced her first fall, fully aware, conscious, present in her body, truly seeing without the blinders on, and the illusions started melting away. As summer faded and the fall air sharpened, something felt different. She noticed more, yet saw less. The crickets announcing the season in steady rhythm, the forest floor softened with fallen leaves. The sound of them crunching under her feet, a simple pleasure once overlooked by the noise inside her mind. She paused and took a deep, full breath of fresh air, felt the cool breeze blowing on her hair and the gentle sunlight on her face. The sweet, musky smell of cedar and damp earth brought memories rushing back. Rubber boots, puddles deeper than they looked, children's laughter echoing through the trees that felt impossibly tall. Fall stirred something tender. It reminded her of letting go, of school beginnings and early sunsets, of how things could end gently without urgency. Sitting in the park, listening to the crickets, Maya felt the ache of everything she had rushed past. Fall asked her not to hold tighter, but to loosen her grip. And for the first time, she listened. She let go. Then winter came. That winter was the kind that settles into the bones. Gray skies pressed low, mountains wrapped in cloud, at times covered in a thick blanket of snow. The rainforest hushed under endless rain. She quietly sipped her warm tea and reflected. The outside world had gone quiet, but not the restful kind. It was a silence filled with exhaustion. Days blurred together, stripped of texture, and she became painfully aware of how she had once moved through them, numb, scrolling, consuming, enduring. So many hearts frozen, the silent suffering was epidemic. She became a witness, a watcher, observing rather than participating. Winter, she realized, wasn't the problem. We had simply forgotten how to rest inside of it. Then spring arrived quietly. The distractions of the outside world began to melt away, much like how the snow retreated up the mountains. Rivers swelled restless and alive. The wind playfully carried cherry blossoms as they danced along the sidewalks, like small celebrations no one stopped for. Maya began to become even more aware with greater clarity and awe. The way the light lingered, shimmered, and bounced off the lake waters longer each evening. The way birds' songs gradually returned without any grand announcement. The sun's heat was gently returning and warming her skin and the earth. The smell of the spring breeze was bright, clean, and filled with excited anticipation. The spring rains brought rainbows, fresh hope, and renewal. She found herself walking without a destination, letting rain touch her face, letting unfinished questions remain unfinished. Something in her mind softened, stretched, and reached outward. Hope returned not as a declaration, but as a feeling, subtle, persistent, real. Spring didn't demand change. Nature didn't think or worry. It had an understanding. Everything was all in perfect order. Spring invited, made way for growth, allowed and flowed. Then summer arrived. Long evenings washed in a golden fire, sunsets mirroring the reflection on the water. She was breathtaken by the colors, textures, smells, and sensations that only a truly divine artist could imagine and create. She found herself sitting quietly, watching in awe, with tears of silent, sacred reverence. For the gift of being alive and being able to experience, to witness the magic of pure joy, harmony, love of the Creator's greatest masterpieces of all, being reflected in nature and each and every soul that carries a divine seed, a spark of life. She was finally in alignment with her own soul's needs, comfort and peace within herself. Her own presence felt safe, home. She felt nourished and spiritually full. She had collected all the bones of her own soul and had called herself back to being whole. Her pain was the chips and cracks in the cup. They now had turned to gold, and it was even more beautiful after it had been broken. As Maya sat in reflective contemplation, she reached down and felt the worn stones beneath her hands. It was as close to heaven on earth as she could imagine it being. That summer brought back the child she had been, the one who played without thinking, who lost track of time, forgot to eat until she was called in for dinner, the one who belonged completely and utterly to the moment. Swimming for hours at the lake, exploring endlessly in the forest, building tree forts and creating secret languages with friends. Joy, she remembered, had never been something to learn or earn. It had simply arrived when she was present enough to notice it. Watching the sun slip behind the mountains, Maya understood what she had been missing all along. Her sense of direction, purpose, belonging, and being home. The journey back to herself was a long path filled with many side quests of self-discovery and some very dark times lost in the dark, foggy labyrinth of her subconscious mind. She was struck how the answers were very simple, but the journey itself was very difficult. She shed tears of relief and joy once that profound realization settled deep into her belly. She and so many others had been living out a season, refusing winter's rest, rushing past fall's release, distrusting spring's patience, trying to force summer's joy without honoring the cycles that made it possible. We are spiritually starving, she realized, not because life is empty and without simple purpose, but because we resist its rhythm and we get lost in the labyrinth of our mind. What a beautiful cosmic dance.